Vivian Wang, the CEO of Landed, and today I'm excited to sit down with Amanda Hyde, Senior Vice President of Operations at Krystal, a legacy brand that's been serving up its iconic sliders for over 90 years. Amanda is all about serving people better, not just guests, but also team members, managers, directors, those who make it all happen. She's passionate about building trust, creating the best employee experience, and making Krystal a true employer of choice. In this episode, we're going to dive into Amanda's journey, how she built her career in restaurant operations, her philosophy on hiring the right people from the top down, and why she believes that the guest experience will never exceed the employee experience. I love that line. Plus, we'll explore how Krystal is balancing innovation and tradition, enhancing operations, while keeping human connection at the heart of everything they do. Amanda, it's so great to have you on the show. We'd love to get started by having you introduce yourself, share a bit about your career journey in the restaurant industry, and then excited to dive into some topics, questions, dive into everything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to represent not only Krystal, but SPB Hospitality. My path in the industry started in 1988. I was a young hostess at Bob Evans Restaurants and just never stopped. I enjoyed the charisma, the energy from the guest, and working on a team. I had never been in sports in school, so it definitely provided that team environment, some competition, and really, like I said, the charisma and energy that I got from the people. We really are in the people business, and in the restaurant side, we just serve food. So I stayed at Bob Evans for 27 years. I actually moved up through the ranks, went to college and stayed with Bob Evans, became a general manager, an area director, and stayed in the state of Florida, but certainly moved my career with Bob Evans. And then I went to Logan's Roadhouse in 2015 as a director of operations. So a director of operations has to manage a market of restaurants from 8 to 15 locations and staffing those restaurants. That was the most important piece to achieving any kind of sustainable results. So I feel like I learned early on the importance of the people piece of our business. Logan's Roadhouse became part of SPB Hospitality after COVID, and I moved into more of a corporate role, operations services, where I was able to lead projects over multiple brands and really be of service to the people that were running the restaurants versus actually being somebody out in the field. So I've been so fortunate to see both sides of it in the restaurant industry before taking this leadership role at Krystal last February.
What a journey. I feel like you've done every single layer of operations. And so when you think about operations excellence, you are able to go at it from an empathetic perspective because you've been on the line, I'm sure, when there's no show. You've been there when there's a huge, super large catering order and super large sugar groups coming in. And also you were there for the craziness around COVID. I can imagine those early days being in the field, trying to figure out what's going on, what to do, what are contingency plans. It was a moment of immense creativity, I'm sure, and problem solving. So thank you for sharing about your experiences. I think all of those are going to lend you very nicely into some of these questions that I had for you. So you've played a major role in shaping Krystal's next act. I think they call it the next act. So what leadership lessons have you learned while guiding Krystal through this transition, or even at Bob Evans, at Logan's, particularly balancing tradition with innovation? And how do you approach modernizing operations like tech integrations, restaurant design, while preserving Krystal's rich legacy and commitment to hospitality? I think this is something that's on everybody's minds right now.
It really is, Vivian. It really is. And there's a lot, that's a lot of questions in one. So yes. I'm going to take it piece by piece. Some of the leadership lessons I've learned, I can put those into 3 quick buckets. Leading with transparency while really collaborating and empowering. So obviously, we have a lot of restaurants. We have 156 on the franchise side, over 120 on the corporate side. Identifying who those leaders are, whether they were already announced leaders or whether they are unofficial, kind of just field identified leaders of Krystal. And I was very lucky enough to have people with a lot of experience in the Krystal brand, a lot of street cred with the Krystal brand, also be some top performers that I folded in onto my senior leadership team. So early on, we have this senior leadership team created, and we opened the two-way communication with them. So when I have to make a tough decision, or SPB has to make a tough decision or change, I am assured that I have the best eyes and best thoughts and ears, whether it's feedback coming up from the field, ideas from the past, legacy, traditions, and I'm making sure we're taking all of that into consideration. So that's the transparency and collaboration, right? I'm letting them know we have to make this change or adjustment or move forward a little bit out of what we've always done.
Yes.
Getting their collaboration, which I call getting their buy-in or getting their weigh-in and buy-in before we ask the broader field to buy in, because that's like turning the Titanic. That's where it becomes really difficult.
Yes.
So, and then what it also created was this elevated pride in the steps of, they're walking with a little bit of pep in their step. They feel like the solution makers. They feel like the innovators and the evolvers. And that really spreads out into the field when we have these 4 individuals that are so well respected. They all have their people out there and everybody is speaking the same language. So, that's really the first step in it. And then, talking about the innovation, we have to balance that with tradition. I mean, we've been selling these square burgers, for 92 years.
Yes.
So while we're not like chasing AI or kiosks in the 4 walls, we're doubling down on food quality, service, warm hospitality, the human interaction and training. But behind the scenes, we're continuously upgrading. How do we measure speed of service? How do we look at those guest experience data points? How do we compare our turnover to last year, 30, 60, 90-day turnover?
Yes.
What are the reasons for turnover? So all of that is happening, and it's all to improve the inner workings and efficiencies for our guests at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. I love what you said there because I think everyone talks about buy-in, right? Buy-in, yes, you need to generate buy-in from your team and from the field and from everyone who's going to be involved in making something successful and carrying it from point A to point Z. But you added in their weigh-in. And that is, I think, a step that is often missed. Because when you have these field leaders, when you have these leaders that are out there in the middle of everything, right? After you made the decision, you're like, hey guys, buy in now. It's a little bit late.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And then, and then you start getting all this, like say you're rolling out something on a training call, right? And you have this great idea. That's when everybody has their 2 cents they want to throw in. Yes. However, if you get all that on the front end with a trusted team and we're rolling it out as the Krystal leadership team, it just goes so much better. It really does. You're absolutely right.
Yep. So a quick summary. So you have people weigh in, and these are your trusted leaders. These are people whose influence is felt, that influence is felt in the organization because people know that they know what they're talking about. They have decades of experience. They've done the job. They're not just someone who's sitting in a home office saying, hey, this is what I think you should do, right? I think having like the field representation in that weigh-in, after you've incorporated that, it's actually great because it kind of gives you a cheat sheet for the rollout. So now you're rolling out, you're planning your trainings, you're planning your materials, your collateral, all that rich work that goes into the rollout Well, you've already gotten your cheat sheet. You've already worked through everything. And now it kind of feels like you have a bit of that crystal ball, and then you go out in the field and everyone's like, wow, Amanda and team have thought about every single one of my 2 cent questions.
You're absolutely right. And in crystal ball, no pun intended, right? That it is, this team is my crystal ball. And there's no holds barred. You know, it's just the five of us on a call, and we really do try to pick apart things. And we're talking about rollouts, like good stuff, like menus or training, but there's also difficult things we have to roll out, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it a different bonus structure, or is it something we have to kind of wrench in on, whether it's a food cost processor or somehow to control labor more. So it's good things, but it's also tough things that we have to present to the field. And having this team behind me, having them just go through it first, just really helps.
Amazing. And something that really stuck out to me during our prep call was that you said the guest experience will never exceed the employee experience. And everything you were talking about just now, it's about the guest, right? But in order for the guest to be taken care of, you have to take care of the employee who's taking care of the guest. So, that's a fantastic tagline, by the way, and that's going to stick with me. How do you prioritize investing in your team and strengthening your employer brand? Obviously, you mentioned a lot of things just now, a bunch of metrics you're looking at: turnover, you're looking at speed of service. You're looking at probably like, obviously P&L,
Sure.
all those things amid all this craziness that is happening in the economy around you, right? We've been through COVID, we've been through inflation, we've been through, so we'll see what comes next, right? So with all of that, how do you prioritize investing in your team and strengthening your employer brand?
So, Vivian, a lot of that is assuring that the people we have in leadership roles out in the field have the culture of positivity, and recognizing and understanding that the managers and the employees in the restaurants are our first guest, and we must recognize and thank them every day. They must feel that positivity, so then they turn it around and treat the guest with that same positivity. So while we're in the field as leaders, and now I'm talking beyond my Krystal leadership team,
Yes.
all of our directors, we must be listening and learning with intent. So we can't just give the head nod and pretend we're listening. We have to really intentionally engage, both our younger, and I say younger, but meaning like newer employees, along with those legacy team members. And we have to understand that there's value in all of their insights, and we have to incorporate the feedback into decisions. So our new employees are the employees of the future, but our legacy employees are the ones that are actually flipping those crystals and bagging in those boxes every day. So we need to get all of that, and seriously listening, taking notes, thanking them for the feedback, and thanking them for being there today, thanking them for having a resting, friendly face when they greet every guest to make them feel welcome. That's one thing. When our team members feel listened to and know we have invested in training them, it doesn't just assure that we're serving and following the processes with the guest, but we're also giving our team members and managers that whole knowledge is power edge, right? And that's a real thing. When they feel well trained and well armed to go at it in the field, they just feel more invested in. So it's something to build on as we have new processes or menu items in the future.
I think that's the resting friendly face is funny, right? Because I think earlier on you said you're doubling down on products, your product, your ingredients. You're doubling down on hospitality and service. And honestly, for every brand, you have to kind of decide, what are we focused on? What are we going to be known for? Because really, like, you can only be known for one or maybe two things at any given point. Some are known for, okay, they have just the most fantastic service. That place, I get consistently fantastic service. Oh, this place, I get consistently, great food, great tasting food, reliable, speedy. This place is it's technology, it's kiosks, it's, whatever. So I think that really doubling down and committing, you have to really commit. Now, if you are you kind of are focused on everything. It's frenetic. You're kind of focused on nothing then.
Yeah, you're throwing so much at the wall, when by the time it gets to the field and that person serving the guest, it becomes so diluted, Vivian. You're absolutely right.
Yes, yes. Amazing. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. I think kind of remembering to pick your approach and then really double down on it and commit to it. And part of that, of course, and you mentioned this so much, is talent and having the right talent. So how does Krystal attract and retain the right talent to support both the brand's legacy and its future growth? Because the brand's legacy, Krystal's for 92 years. There's a lot of legacy there, but then you also have the future, the next act. So, how do you hire to support both?
It's just we have to have that talent pipeline, but we also have to continue to offer opportunities to our current team, and it's a blend. So when anybody in the field looks at our Krystal leadership team, the Fantastic Four, two of them have come up through the ranks, like as general manager, director, gone over to the training department. So people see a growth potential pipeline. They just see a different way they could potentially go from being an employee or general manager. Some have come from the outside. So at our nucleus of the leadership team has this blend of where the talent came from. So I think continuing to communicate that to the field, empowering leaders to say where they see themselves, where they would like to go, where they would like to grow is very helpful. We do have tools and we have programs to like bonuses for people that may refer somebody they know. And just like a guest, if you're willing to recommend somebody and sign your name on them, they're probably a pretty good egg to add to our basket. So we do that. We also, we have very competitive work-life balance schedules, competitive pay, so all those things. But we do play on the legacy. We play a lot on our story. So going back to some of the changes in the buildings and modernizing things, while our colors may be bolder, our edges may be sharper, in all of our remodeled restaurants and new restaurants, we go back to that Krystal timeline. And that's a big deal for us to go all the way back to the 1930s and share with our people how we got where we are today. I think that helps also.
I mean, I can imagine, right? I mean, going into Krystal, you can feel the history in a way. It's a little bit, there's like a little bit of the retro vibe. And it's a nostalgia, honestly. It's a bit of a nostalgic vibe. And
I love you for saying that, by the way, because that's definitely what we're going for.
it's great. And so when you have like the nostalgia, people feel like they're part of something bigger. They're part of a legacy, they're part of a history, and carrying it forward. And having it be kind of like this like home base for your team, a home base for your guests, where they can kind of return back to that. That makes so much sense. And I like those things that you mentioned there, right? Because I think work-life balance and competitive pay. Now, these are things that employers of choice are kind of thinking about now. I bet decades ago when you started in the restaurant industry, maybe it was less about this, right? It was maybe less about career potential. You just happened to have worked really hard and worked your way up the ladder. But now I think it's table stakes to have a career growth plan. It's table stakes to have competitive pay to talk about work and life with your team.
It is. And, just the different avenues we have right now to seek out who's looking for employees, right? Like Indeed or LinkedIn or all the different ways. We know that our good talent could be being poached at any moment. So
Yes.
we have to be much more compelling and let them know, hey, you're part of this team. Your opinion matters. This is how much we value you. And we do have to continue to call out some of those benefits and make sure that they're the benefits are really being lived in the field. So if I'm talking about work-life balance, I have to make
Yes.
sure all my leaders are saying, you know what, you need to take your PTO, you need to take your vacation days. Let's make sure you're not working more than your shift time. So
Yes.
we can't just say it,
And
we have to live it.
that's great because it's you are communicating it. Now, we see a lot at Landed that um, there is high levels of competition when it comes to hiring. Candidates nowadays are applying to 14 jobs in one sitting, and it's easier than ever to apply to a job because everything's been digitized, everything's been mobile optimized, everything is, and I think that is something that all these all brands, including Krystal, have realized that there is indeed there's social media, there are all these job boards, there's Google Jobs, there are all these places that are constantly kind of surfacing opportunities to your existing team and to candidates who might be considering working at your business. And so things like just the whole candidate experience. I think we talk a lot about marketing guest experience, right? It's like the guest experience, like limited time offerings that you're bringing for the season to the guests. There's all this marketing that goes to the guest. But what about the marketing that goes to the employee? Because honestly, they're probably the same pool of people. And so marketing to the employee these benefits, marketing that you actually do offer competitive pay, that you do value work-life balance. It's a bit of a balancing act because you only have like your job description and maybe one image to communicate all of this rich information.
Right.
Um, but then, of course, your career page, right? Investing in a career page, investing in putting the values there, putting those benefits there, is something that we see is super beneficial because you have your job description and then you have this web page, and that's really it. Like, if yeah, people might have been in a Krystal before, and that they're able to pull on that experience, but really and that goes back to what we talked about earlier, distilling that message. What are you really looking to convey in your job description, in how you talk about your careers at Krystal? Because you don't have much real estate to do it. And people are constantly bombarded. It's an attention economy in a way. People are constantly vying for your attention. And whether it's social media, whether it's, we have probably like 10 different messaging platforms that we use nowadays. And it's crazy. So when you have a crisp message, that's the only thing that's going to cut through. So I think that we see that a lot in the whole attracting and retaining talent piece and I think you highlighted a really important thing, Amanda, there, which is that just because they work for you today doesn't mean that other businesses are not locked in on them if they're a particularly great candidate. There's always just because they work for you now doesn't mean you can take them for granted. Absolutely not. That's potentially the longer they've worked for you, the more you want to retain them. They have all this institutional knowledge.
Yeah, and you need a blend. You need a blend of that with the new people with new ideas and different energies. And it could get so easy for us, to your point, of using technology almost as a replacement. Like, oh, you can order at a kiosk and you can apply online. And how many times are we doing things via text or email versus a face-to-face interview? And are we putting our best foot forward when choosing the right candidates? And you just said it. It's hiring the right people is a lot of effort and a lot of energy, but then retaining that's even more of a science, right? It can't just be on our homepage, like, here's your values. But I think in the future, it's going to be who tells the best stories, like who has some real live examples on their webpage versus, oh, here's an AI generated idea of what Krystal is versus, hi, I'm Pam Williams. I started as a general manager. I'm the senior director of training, and this is my path through Krystal. And this is how they invested in me. So I think I'm going to work now after talking to you on creating some of those stories to share.
I love that. This is hopefully inspirational to you
It
and to
is.
those who are watching this, right? Because those are the real stories. Pam Williams, this is her story. And I think people just have a more human and emotional connection to a real story. I mean, we can talk about generalizations all the time, but when you have a person who's like, hey, this is my testimonial to this, that's why we love ratings platforms in a way, right? Like people love ratings platforms, people love writing good things, they love writing bad things, and everything in between. And it's because I think humans trust other humans. And ultimately, a business, a company is just a group of many humans that are
It
working
is.
towards a common goal. And so, what advice would you give to operations and HR professionals looking to grow their careers by driving innovation and building a people-centric brand? So obviously you built your career, and I don't know if those decades ago you had a clear plan. You were like, I'm going to be the SVP of Operations.
Of Krystal, right?
And so maybe you had a clear plan and maybe you were methodically, working through that plan. But what advice would you give to maybe people starting out in their career, as well as those who are already in leadership positions, just based on your experience having been in both seats?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity because it does make me reflect. And you just said it. When I was a general manager, a director of operations, I was a leader of people at different levels. And I think being hands-on, understanding what the team is going through, showing them that I don't want to say a subject matter expert, but certainly capable to assist and help. But my focus will always remain on people. And I hope that anybody in a leadership role understands, in my mind, being that servant leader while having an eye on the business of it, right? None of us are operating a non-for-profit at this level in restaurants. So teaching them how to be successful, but even teaching somebody how to be successful is focusing on the people, developing leaders. So not only teaching them the tactical focus, but developing more leaders under us. And when you're a not so experienced leader, sometimes it's hard to kind of let go of some of the reins and develop people around you because you're still developing yourself. So
Yes.
I think continuing to teach others makes you more of a subject matter expert, but continuing to focus on what the people around you need, whether they're directly reporting to you or whether they're the guests in the restaurant, it really ensures you set the company up for long-term success.
I think that what you said there is something that I wanted to just highlight, which is that the more experienced leaders are those who are willing to give away responsibilities because they're using that to not just empower the next generation of leaders, but also to help people actually take ownership on their team. And it is so true. Those who want to kind of keep everything for themselves, they want to have full control over everything, tends to be the less experienced leaders because they think they can do everything and do everything well, which is physically impossible.
And then you have a single point of failure. Like if
Yes,
something happens and you're just, oh, we're dead in the water because we haven't built the team around us.
exactly, exactly. And so I love that because sometimes it's like a little bit unintuitive, right? Because sometimes leaders are like, well, in order for me to demonstrate, especially if they're a new leader, in order
Mm-hmm.
for me to demonstrate why I have earned and I am worthy of this position, I need to do everything and show Amanda how I can do everything. Well, that's not going to be the recipe for success.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's a hard one because you want to validate your role. And I think that goes maybe to a little imposter syndrome, a little of some other
sure.
things. Like you want to show everyone you can do it, even if you're leading a new group of people. You feel like that's the way to get street cred. I said it earlier, but you have to also, when you teach somebody something, it goes back. You're giving them knowledge. Ooh, I didn't see it that way. Provide an aha moment, and you're really going to get somebody on your team.
Absolutely. I think a really great litmus test for an amazing leader is when you hire them or you bring them on, how many people do they have to bring with them? And those people that they have to bring with them, that tells you how great of a leader they are because those people are loyal to them
Yeah,
and they felt empowered by them.
that's very interesting. Yes.
Yes. So it's maybe even one of those like interview questions when you like think
Yeah,
about attracting and retaining the right talent, especially a leader, right? Tell me, like, in this position, you have these roles to fill because part of a leader is hiring for
yeah,
roles. Well, who's your short list? Because everyone who's a leader who's been in the industry for a while or has built up a leadership position in the industry must have people who want to follow them or
who
must
are
have
willing to
people.
leave what they're doing to come with you and
Yes,
follow you personally. Absolutely.
absolutely. Because again, we work for humans and we work with humans. And the company is just a group of humans
A
that are
vessel,
working
right?
together.
It's the vessel to get the paycheck every other week and make sure, but it is, back to that whole what we're selling, and it's just part of the that makes us the employer of choice. Do you like the people you're working with? Are you led in positivity and led through change in a reasonable way? It's not knee jerky. It's all of those things compounding. But I love that. I love the litmus test. I'm jotting that one down.
Amazing. Um, well, Amanda, this has been an incredible conversation. It's inspiring to hear how you're not only leading Krystal through innovation, but also staying true to the brand's legacy. What I heard throughout today is you always put people first. We talked a lot about people. We didn't really talk about food that much. Like you said, we're in the people business and then food, and then the restaurant
We
just
just
serves
serve
food.
food, right? Yep.
And I think that that's what that's what more conversation should be about in this industry is about the people because the people are either the guests or they're your team or they're your leaders and collectively if you just get those right then all the other pieces will just kind of naturally fall in place.
And it's a hard thing to understand, but you're absolutely right. It's just hard, but once they get it, and it's just the positivity and the energy, a guest forgives you if the crystal was cold that day. If you attacked it with, I'm so sorry, I'm sincere, I'm genuinely appreciative of the feedback. So
Yes,
we can go
absolutely.
on and on about guest concerns, but that's for another day.
Of course. And you know what? If you have the right team on the ground to kind of pivot as needed and kind of adapt to whatever comes up. I mean, every day there's a new fun surprise. If you have the right team to pivot, then you can be comfortable and you know that what you can expect is that there are going to be surprises. So expect the unexpected, but if you have the team in place to expect the unexpected, things will be smooth sailing.
And they're making good decisions on your behalf. So that's exactly why it's let's invest in the people. So you're assured they're making the good decisions out there.
Exactly. Well, thank you again so much, Amanda, for the time today. This was incredible. I think we covered so much ground, so many good nuggets in here. And I really appreciate the time. And that's a wrap for today's Fast Casual.